Good Thursday morning. Welcome on in the Morning JOX. JOX 94.5 on this brutally cold start to your morning here in Birmingham, Alabama. Says it's 23 degrees outside. Wind chill is about 17, and it feels every bit of it. Just be safe, be aware out there. It's cold, and cold is also what it looked like for one of the teams in the state on the hardwood last night, and I guess we saw a little bit of it on Saturday with Auburn knocking off Alabama, and it feels as though Alabama's kind of a little bit of a funk right now because we knew the matchup with Missouri was going to be an exciting one. We knew that it could have gone either way, especially with Missouri being a top 15 team in college basketball. But you want to talk about hot starts, and we'll talk about Auburn's win over Arkansas as well. As Auburn knocked off Arkansas 67-60. But Alabama falls to Missouri 110-98. And very similar to the Auburn matchup, Missouri came out the gate hot. I mean, absolutely on fire. And Alabama didn't really help themselves with the turnovers and things during the first half. But all in all, it kind of feels like it felt last year where the games that really matter towards the end, it seems as though Alabama can't stay out of their own way. You look at something that they didn't do a lot against Auburn was turn the ball over, but it had been a recurring theme all season long of, okay, you're shooting your own selves in the foot in a lot of situations because you turned the ball over. And last night, Missouri was ready. They were locked in from the jump, and it felt as though Alabama had moments where they could have, cut back into the lead, but it felt as though they couldn't make a defensive stop when they needed it the most. And I mean, when you're allowing a team to score 110 points, it's going to be absolutely difficult to beat them.
Yeah, to go on the road in the SEC against a top 25 team and score 98 points and lose by double digits, that's just a head scratcher. And this was just a weird game, to be completely honest with you. And just the way that it ended up being, those first 2 minutes of the game were ultimately kind of the difference for Missouri. Because if you look at the game, I mean, after they went out and got out to their 12-0 lead, the game was tied from that point on. Like, once Alabama got it going, like, it was a great back and forth game. It was just the fact that Missouri had built that lead, and it put Alabama behind so much that they just couldn't overcome it. It reminded me a lot of the Auburn basketball game, in a sense, just a higher scoring version of that game. It also gave you shades, if you wanted like a football comparison of kind of like the Vanderbilt game, right? Where you find yourself down 14-0 really early. And then at that point, you didn't play terribly the rest of the way. It was just, you had dug yourself into such a hole that you never were able to get out of it. And that's essentially what happened last night. I mean, Mark Sears was incredible. He had a huge bounce back game after a rough one against the Tigers on Saturday. He had 35 points last night, the most points he scored in a game this year. So pretty good game for him on his birthday. But outside of that, you just didn't have guys that were on fire like Missouri was. I mean, Missouri had two guys that absolutely went off, and Mark Mitchell, who had 31, and Caleb Grill, who had 25 for you. They combined, they scored more than half of Missouri's points, and they ended up cooling off from three. But I know at one point they were 5 of 6 from three. They started out absolutely scorching hot, and then that kind of cooled down. Alabama, honestly, you look at what Alabama did, and you had 14 turnovers, which is obviously not good, but you're averaging 13 a game on the season. So it's really not that abnormal from what we've seen this year, but you shoot over 50% from the floor. You shoot 40% from three. You make double-digit three-pointers. Not a great night at the free throw line, but not atrocious either. So when you look at how Alabama played offensively, it's like, okay, you played a good game. It was just you couldn't get consecutive stops when you needed them on the defensive side. And hey, credit to Missouri, because they did, a similar thing that Auburn did, where Alabama would go on a run, get the thing close, and then you felt like, all right, if Alabama gets a stop here and then goes and scores again, like, we've got ourselves a ball game. And essentially every time that happened, Missouri would come up with a big shot, and they were hitting some crazy shots in this game. which, I mean, credit to them. It was just kind of their night. I will say this. I'm not saying this is the reason that Alabama lost because there were a lot of things they did poorly on the defensive side. Missouri shot 47 free throws last night. There were some questionable no calls on one side of this game, and everything else was called on the Missouri side of this game. So I don't like blaming the refs. And again, anytime you give up 110, you don't deserve to win. But when one team shoots 26 more free throws than the other team, I'm sorry, I just don't know if there's ever a scenario where you look at that and go, yeah, I think that was probably a well-called game.
Yeah, and
because you could tell early on Alabama was trying to do what they did against Auburn and attack the rim, get the foul, and I mean, they were letting I'm sorry, they were letting some Missouri dudes just straight up beat up on Alabama players and reach in and grab the ball, and
they're handsy. Like they like their hands are always on them. And I'm like, okay, well,
gotta call it at some point, buddy.
At some point.
Gotta call it.
Like you're actually redirecting where somebody's going. I mean, Mark Sears was legit getting beat up anytime he was going. Like anytime he got the ball inside of the 3-point line and trying to attack, he was taking some bumps. And I do agree with you too. Like, I mean, I know Alabama defensively has their issues, but there's no way that you're going to tell me that Missouri could have shot almost 50 free throws in a ball game. There was a little bit of a lean, but to your point too, you gave up 110 points, no matter how you slice it up. And again, Missouri, they came out the gate just, I mean, absolutely on fire. And
I mean, Alabama took a timeout after what, 2 minutes?
Yes, and they needed.
You don't see that,
yeah. Like there was like 17:38 left in the game. Shout out to Fetty Wap. It was a few minutes into the ball game, and Nate was like, "Give me a 30, big dog." Like, what is going on? And it felt as though they could never really fight back to that because it felt from the jump they had to press, and it's like, oh my gosh, here we go. And then it came to a point where, I mean, Missouri they were getting just about anything. And I think that's kind of what their identity was. Like they just kept driving to the hole, kept driving into the paint, and they were getting some fouls. And I mean, Alabama, with Kentucky coming up this weekend too, you've got to find one. Like this is a pivotal point in the year where you kind of finding your seed and you're trying to find your footing. And this late in the season, you want to be on the better side of these things because you want to say that you're peaking towards the end of the season, whereas now it's starting to see like Alabama starting to get a little burnt out because I think it starts on the defensive side of the ball too, because when your shots aren't falling, you've got to get back defensively. And Missouri was just taking advantage of just the pacing of the game. They were dictating the speed of how the game was going, and to the tune of 110 points. And if you're Alabama, you have got to find some things out because it's going to be difficult moving forward on how you can continue to find ways to win ball games. And it wasn't like Alabama shot terribly. They went 41% from three, shot over 50% from the field. But I do think the free throw discrepancy, when you're 15 for 21 as opposed to 31 of 47 for Missouri from the free throw line, I mean, that's a 16-point difference of made free throws just at the free throw line. So I think that, for at some point it's gonna have to balance itself out. But again, defensively, is some things that you gotta take care of, and you gotta stop turning the ball over. You have to stop turning the ball over, and just a lot of it was just loose balls, not thinking, not seeing, just kind of reaction. And I think that Alabama, with the rest of the schedule that you have, you've got to clean some things up because it's going to be difficult to really just flip that switch when the NCAA tournament comes on. Not to say they can't do it, because we had the same conversation about Alabama last year where it's, oh man, this team just does not look like they're going to make a deep run, and they mess around and make it to the Final Four. So there are some things that you still need to iron out, but it's going to be easier said than done because the competition does not fall off the rest of the way.
No, it doesn't. And I mean, again, I guess if you can take solace in anything from the last couple of games, again, you had a really poor shooting performance, and you still were, pretty much neck and neck with the best team in the country for 40 minutes, and were competitive. And then you went and played a Missouri team that, let's be honest, if Missouri was going to play like that last night, they were going to beat a lot of teams, yes. Right? I mean, just the way that the game was called and the way that they were scoring at such a high pace. At one point, I think with 10 minutes left in the first half, Missouri was on pace to score 125 points. It was just, It was insane. And so, well, yes, part of it was Alabama not being able to get enough stops defensively, missing some opportunities to get some crucial rebounds that would have taken possessions away and second chance opportunities away. There are also just some nights where, I mean, like when we were texting during the game, like some of the stuff, when you watch a game and you see certain shots go in, you're like,
Yeah.
something tells me it's just kind of that team's night. And I mean, hey, there's nothing wrong with that. That's the way that the game works. But it just felt like one of those nights where it's like, all right, I don't know if you play Missouri, 10 more times, are they going to have a shooting performance like that and be able to score that many points? But hey, they did last night, and now you get to go back home, but you got to play Kentucky, and a Kentucky team that
They got revenge.
yeah, they got revenge last night. They definitely kind of took it to Vanderbilt in the last 10 minutes or so last night. But yeah, it doesn't get any easier from here, and you're gonna have to again, regardless of what happens the rest of the way, you're gonna be in the tournament. It's gonna be fine, but you want to hold on to that 1 seed preferably, and you got Florida and Auburn left on your schedule, as well as Tennessee and Kentucky and Mississippi State, and you're probably going to have to win at least 3, if not 4, of those remaining games in order to stay on that one line.
Yeah.
So, got to step it up now.
Got to. And then, hey, look at it from Auburn last night as well. Arkansas threw about as many punches as they possibly could, and it wasn't the best shooting performance for either team. But I think if you're Auburn, to have played as inconsistent as you did, and you still come out with a win, you'll take it. Janai Broome, 16-13, doing what he does best. But Chaney Johnson has started to come into his own. His size is a mismatch. Like, he's strong enough to be able to bang down on the block, but athletic enough to stretch things out. And I think collectively for what Auburn was able to do, you finally got, a good Chad Baker-Mazara. He was hot. He was confident. He played well. You were able to turn the ball. You were able to turn Arkansas over a good bit, but you also had some turnovers on your side as well that were kind of just questionable. Like, okay, what are we doing? Like, let's settle down. Let's get into our groove. But overall, I think that Auburn, it could have been a hangover effect. It could have been one of those things. They were so hyped up, so amped up for number 2 against Alabama, where then you took your foot off the gas a little bit against Arkansas. And Arkansas, they played about as good as you possibly could and as bad as you possibly could in certain situations where it was a complete fight, and they ended up taking a lead late in the second half, but couldn't maintain it. They were up by 1 for a period of time, and then boom, Auburn comes back and they hit a couple shots down the stretch. But I do think that this Auburn team, as deep as they are, 4 points from Tahad Pettiford wasn't really his night, but Chaney Johnson, Chad Baker-Mazara, those guys coming off the bench and maintaining that offensive presence. And again, like, it wasn't Arkansas couldn't buy a shot. Big Z, he was unreal against Alabama, kept them in the ball game when Arkansas played Alabama. Goes out there and pulls an 0 for 10 from the field, 0 from 9 from 3.
Mm-hmm.
And at some point, if you're John Calipari, you're like, hey, stop shooting. You're a 7-footer. Get on the block, and let's just find an easy shot to build some sort of confidence up. Because there were points in the game where it's, okay, Arkansas is trying to find a shot, and Big Z was just taking it because he just wanted to see one go in. It's like, big dog, you're not even working within the flow of the offense. You're just throwing it up just to see if you just want to see one go in. And I felt that was more detrimental to Arkansas than it was Auburn just straight up beating, because Arkansas had a chance to win this ball game. They had many, many opportunities because Auburn had a couple of cold spells where it felt as though, okay, Arkansas, you've got to attack. You have to get to it. And I mean, Billy Richmond coming from the bench, giving you 8 points. I think they should have looked for him a little bit more because his athleticism, he was attacking the basket at a high clip, had a couple dunks in the game. And I think for Arkansas, in order to beat these better teams, one, you've got to shoot better, of course, but you also have to identify who's got the hot hand and just ride it. Like, you have to, I don't know. Like, I think Coach Cal, when you don't have, the one and done players on your roster, his coaching is starting to rear. It's like, hey man, at some point, one of your assistants or somebody has to look Ivisic in the face and say, hey, big dog, we don't need you to put up these threes. We just don't. Like, your shot's not falling. Let's set something up. Can you do some backdoor screens? Can we open some lanes up for some guys? Because your shot just isn't there. I mean, you go 0 for 10, at some point you got to tell them, hey, just get to the block and make it tough for Janai Broome to do anything. And I think that for defensively, with some of the matchups that they were throwing at Janai, you had the game plan, you had the recipe, but you had to make shots on top of that, and they just didn't. And Auburn ends up knocking off Arkansas 67-60.
Yeah, down the stretch in this game for Arkansas, you felt like, first off, I was super impressed that they even put themselves in the position that they did to where it was as close as it was. I mean, even, talking to some Arkansas people that we've had on three-man front during the week, I mean, it was like, all right, let's just move on to the next game because, I mean,
Right.
there's really what's the point of even playing this game? And the way that they were able to keep it neck and neck, I mean, for an entire 40 minutes, right? It was back and forth the entire time. And, it just felt like late in that game when you had opportunities for Arkansas, whether it was to take back the lead or when you did have a 1 point lead to be able to extend it, it just felt like, you had a little bit of that deer in the headlights of, oh, are we really in a position to, like if I hit this shot, are we going to beat the number one team in the country? And it was just a little bit of that. I don't know. You just see it from teams that I guess haven't been in those situations a lot. And you could tell that was one of those moments for them where they're like, oh, crap. Yeah, we're not supposed to be playing this well, or this game's not supposed to be as close as it is this late into the game. And you start to panic a little bit
Yep.
because you feel the pressure and you're like, okay, man, I don't want to do anything wrong. And you end up overthinking something. And some of the shots that Arkansas was taking, you brought up, Big Z and his inability to hit a shot last night. And, there are a couple times that, I saw John L. Davis where it's like you're just trying to force something that's maybe a little bit of a longer two than you need. It's not a great basketball shot, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's more of a, the shot clock's winding down. I got to get something off. And it just felt like Arkansas wasn't able to kind of pull through in that pressure in those clutch moments late in the game. And credit to Auburn. I mean, like you said, Cheney Johnson was great. He had 12 of his 14 in the second half. He was absolutely massive for Auburn. Janai goes off for 16 points to lead the way, and Baker Mazara coming off and giving you 15 was big time as well. And I mean, hey, anytime, again, I don't care, who you're playing, whether you're at home or on the road, but I mean, when you're shooting 15% from three like Auburn did last night, and you're shooting 40% from the floor overall in the game, and you're not getting to the charity stripe a lot. You have double-digit turnovers, which is a little uncharacteristic for
Mm-hmm.
Auburn, and you're still able to pull away and find a way to win. You'll certainly take that. So yeah, I think that was again a game that maybe similar to some of the things we saw early in the year against a South Carolina or Texas on the road, where it's all right, maybe you're a little tired after the Alabama game. Maybe you kind of took your foot off the gas a little bit, but I think this is the kind of game that reminds you real quick of, oh yeah, we might be the best team in the country, but if we have an off night, people can still come in here and beat us, and I think that could be beneficial for them. But hey, another great win. They avoided the letdown after the win over Alabama, and unfortunately, they can now say that they beat Alabama twice, I guess.
205-834-9450. Your text message, your calls, just getting your reaction from Alabama's fall from against Missouri 110-98, and also Auburn's win over Arkansas 67-60. How are you feeling about your squads? Want to get your reaction from last night. Get to your text message, your calls when we return here on Morning JOX and JOX 94.5. 6:23 here on Morning JOX. JOX 94.5. Damian Mitchell, Conrad Van Order, and you as well. In your reaction to the games last night across the SEC, of course, Kentucky knocks off Vanderbilt 82-61. Auburn knocks off Arkansas in a close one, 67-60. And Alabama goes to Columbia, Missouri, and falls to the Missouri Tigers 110-98. Just reading your text messages, your phone calls here. 205-834-9450. Fanboy text in says Youngblood and Nelson have been MIA these past two games, along with the defense for Alabama.
Yeah. Youngblood had really kind of established himself as when you needed a three, he was going to be able to give it to you. Him and Holloway were those guys for a handful of games. And yeah, he's left something to be desired. And Grant Nelson, I
don't know, man.
This year's been a disappointment for him. I will just say that, because we saw the player that he kind of turned into in the NCAA tournament last year, and that's the player that they wanted you to be all along. And he's not a good three-point shooter, and the fact that he continues to stay outside on the wing and continues to stay and try to shoot three-pointers instead of being more physical, getting in the paint, getting dirty, I don't
know, man.
I was about to say, you've had him for 2 years now, and you haven't been able to figure out what to do with him. So when he's on, he is a great player, but for some reason this year, he just really hasn't been on.
Yeah, Mark at Homewood, he says Grant Nelson's been a liability on both ends of the floor. He can't guard on the perimeter or in the post, and he continues to miss high percentage shots on the offensive end.
Yep.
Yeah,
that sums it up.
Also, we needed more than Mark to show up. 30 plus points from him, and we lost. Is not normal for Alabama. Yeah, I mean, he had 35, and
you scored almost 100 on the road against a top 25 team, and you lost by double digits. And your best player scored 35.
Yeah, right. Like, Mark's here showed up. We know it was his birthday. He went out there and did what he needed to do, but you've got to have those other pieces. You have to. Somebody else takes in Auburn. On the Auburn side of things, it says Auburn was careless with the ball at times, which is why they had so many turnovers. Wasn't a good shooting night, but value the ball, and you most likely blow them out. Defense in the second half won this game. That I agree with 100%.
Absolutely.
I agree with it 100%. And I think if you're Chaney Johnson and Denver Jones, you got to start looking for your shots a little bit more too. Be more aggressive offensively, because they can really add more value to what they already bring to this offense, or at least to the team too. On the offensive side, I think for Chaney Johnson, I mean, he's just so fluid, because he's tall enough, and like his arms are so long that when he's the one on the screen and roll, like if he's rolling to the basket, if your big man ain't there, he could dunk on you. Like he's going straight to the rim, and he's so fluid and athletic enough that, and so I mean he can dribble enough to kind of be in a one-on-one situation where you've seen. I mean, he had I think it was Kelly. It was Kelly on the backside one time, and Janai Broom, he kind of told everybody to fan on out, and he was starting to look for some space, and he zip-lined a pass across to him on the three-point line, hits it, and it's like, okay, now I see why he's leading the team in assists. He can see the entire floor as a big man, and I think that for Auburn, your depth is what's been your biggest point, because you even saw Chris Moore, he had a couple shots early on. He's averaging 1.1 points per game, and he had an opportunity to go out there and make some plays too. So I think the depth for Auburn continues to be their calling card, and why they're sitting at the number one spot in college basketball. So I think that for Auburn, they're starting to peak at the right time, whereas Alabama's going the opposite direction from what we've seen all season long.
Yeah, no, you're absolutely spot on with that. And I mean, again, for Auburn, these are the types of games where when you walk away with a win, you just kind of look back and go, thank God, right?
Yeah.
A win is a win, especially in this league this year, and you'll certainly take it. Doesn't mean there's not things moving forward that you look at that game and go, oh yeah, all right, we need to improve on that moving forward. But again, it was an uncharacteristic game for Auburn, and when you have an uncharacteristic game and you're still able to go out there and win against a team that Arkansas looks like an NCAA tournament team to me. I know they haven't won their last couple of games, but being able to go toe to toe. Probably should have beaten Texas A&M. You could make the argument that they should have won this game at times last night as well. And, that was a good team. So, if you're Auburn, I wouldn't sweat it too much. It just, you're going to have these kinds of nights. And when you do, you're just thankful if you're able to walk away with a win. But yeah, for Alabama, I mean, you've now lost back-to-back games for the first time all season. You've still got 5 games left to go, and they're all against teams in the top 25. So
Mm-hmm.
this thing could fall off a cliff pretty quickly here if you're not careful. But, again, maybe coming back home, if you're Alabama, you need to win this game against Kentucky on Saturday.
Yep.
If you drop this game and you're looking at 3 losses in a row, and then you've got Mississippi State coming up, but then you've got Tennessee, Florida, and Auburn back to back to back to end the season. That's a brutal stretch. And I mean, to be fair, I mean, I don't think anybody's really going to blame you that much if you were to drop all 3 of those games just because of how difficult they are. But yeah, you don't want to go into the SEC tournament having lost 4 or 5 of your last 6 games or 5 of your last 7 games or something like that. Yeah, like you said, that's just the opposite way you want to be trending. But to be fair, that's kind of how things ended last season for Alabama. They had a really rough stretch at
Yep.
the end. Were one and done in the SEC tournament, and then boom, next thing you know, you find yourself in the Final Four. So nothing is impossible, but yeah, this certainly is. The way they're playing right now, that's not going to get the job done. They're gonna have to figure some things out. I will say I did like the LeBaron Philon got to start last night. I think that, continuing to give him more opportunities, because I mean he was starting earlier in the year and then they kind of shuffled the rotation around. I know he turned the ball over a couple of times last night, but he made some big shots. He's a guy, he can create for himself, and he's somebody that can help Mark Sears when he's on the floor and help Mark Sears get better looks. He can help Holloway get better looks when he's out there. Same thing for Youngblood and some of these other guys. So I think you might have something there, but, as we were talking about with the texters, you need more from Grant Nelson. I think you need a little more from Cliff Amori. He just hasn't. Defensively, he's been pretty solid for most of the season, but
Mm-hmm.
offensively, he really just hasn't given you a whole lot. And I know that's the way that Alabama plays, but, some of these guys are going to have to find ways to step up. Stevenson's going to have to find a way to be more consistent offensively.
Youngblood too, man. He doesn't look like he did when he was at USF.
No.
Like, I remember watching him when they were playing at UAB when they were in the American Conference last year. And I mean, he was an offensive threat at any point. And now you would think being in this system that, big dog, you're going to have the green light. And it still feels as though
There's times where he needs to look for a shot.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. And I think that's where I have like the biggest question mark about him of, okay, why do you continue to put him in the starting lineup if he's not going to be aggressive? I mean, like, you look at Aiden Holloway coming from the bench, he's going to put it up. And I think that Youngblood he's got to be more aggressive offensively and like truly look for his shot. And I think that that's another avenue for Alabama. And I mean, you just got to cut down the turnovers too. I know you're playing at such a fast pace, but you got to be under control in a lot of situations. And I think that, to your point, that some other pieces have to continue to elevate. And you're seeing that on the Auburn side of things where, okay, if Janai isn't necessarily putting up his shots, everybody else is kind of trying to figure things out. We can still run the offense through him, but if they have a shot, they're going to put it up. So we'll continue to see. 205-834-9450. We'll take your text message, your calls on the other side. Keep it locked right here on JOX 94.5. I'm having an internal debate, but I'm gonna go with my gut. AC/DC.
That's right.
Oh, thank God.
I was about to say
It was gonna be them or Guns N' Roses, and I just went with my gut. I was like, this sounds like AC/DC. And I was
pretty
right.
distinct voice, but yeah. I'm glad you were able to figure that one out.
I said I don't know rock. Welcome back in the morning, JOX 94.5.
Probably an easy one, but well, it should be an easy one, but
I got it. Welcome back in, Damian Mitchell, Conrad Van Order, here on Morning JOX, having some fun with you. Recapping last night, Auburn's win over Arkansas to maintain their number one standing, not just in the SEC, but in the nation as well. You knock off the Razorbacks 67-60. Alabama loses back-to-back games after their loss to Auburn on Saturday. They follow that up with another loss in Columbia, Missouri against the Missouri Tigers, 110-98. Been listening to your feedback, 205-834-9450. We'll continue on the text line and the phone lines. Let's go to Greg on the phone line. Wants to talk some ball with us this morning. What's going on, Greg?
Nothing much. How are y'all?
Can't complain, man. Happy Thursday.
Yep. Hey, have you noticed the text they're calling now, man? It just seems like they're nitpicking with that white boy they called it on last night for Arkansas and Mazzaro.
Yeah, I think they were probably just trying to. I mean, Chad Baker Mazzaro is starting to get into that Draymond Green category of they're almost looking for you to keep, like, to do something. And for any reason in particular, they'll tee you up just to. The referees are trying to, I think, I'm going to say they're making it about them, but they're at least starting out from the jump saying, hey, none of that's going to be tolerated. So just keep your emotions in check and play ball.
I think it makes basketball better, talking trash. It's fun to watch. I mean, you can get out on the hockey ring and throw punches at each other.
Exactly.
Get a little penalty. I mean, that's ridiculous.
That's what I'm saying. Because, like, the whirlwind of emotions that happen in competitive matches and stuff, like, let these boys play. Unless he, like, physically does something to somebody, then you could probably warn a tech. But if he's just, flexing his jersey, whatever, like, come on, man. Like, we've seen worse. There's a lot of worse things he could have done.
All right, I appreciate you.
Absolutely, man. Let's go to Don, who wants to talk some Auburn hoops with us this morning. What's going on, Don?
Hey, good morning, fellas, and everything. And I was telling Conrad on the screen, Damon, I hate it when we both play at the same time because, Alabama and Missouri was a more entertaining game. And as they say in basketball, my friends, survive in advance.
That's all that matters, man.
Well, yeah, all that matters is that you won the game. And I know you were talking about it a minute ago, Damien, but Chaney Johnson, like the last 7 or 8 games, has really, really came on.
Mm-hmm.
Everything. And he was the difference in the game. And I know everybody hates. Sometimes they hate the way that Chad Baker Mazzaro plays and everything. But my goodness gracious, without his free throws at the end of the game, we would have lost that game.
Yep, and he was the best one you needed at the free throw line just because his percentage, and he's pretty much automatic from the free throw strike.
Yeah, and I think if you look at it, I think he's shooting like 90-something% from the free throw line. At one time during the season, he had made 51 in a row at one time. But Conrad, question for you, buddy. That was like an NBA game, man.
Yeah, it certainly looked that way at times. Defense certainly seemed to be optional at times, but hey, credit to Missouri. They were hitting some crazy shots, and sometimes that's what you need to do. And so they were hot, and Alabama, just like the Auburn game, just couldn't find a way to claw their way back.
Well, when I'm watching the Auburn game, of course, and everything, so I'm keeping up with the score on my phone on the ESPN app, and my goodness gracious, what they do? Just jump out to like a 30-15 lead on you?
Yeah, it was 12-0 to start things off in the first 2.5 minutes or so of the game, and from that point on, it was a tie ball game the rest of the way. It was just Missouri got out to a big lead, and I think they started 5 of 6 from 3. I mean, they couldn't miss for the first 10 minutes or so of that game last night.
Well, what did you think about the coach? I mean, the Auburn game ended a lot earlier than the Alabama game. What did you think about Missouri's coach going over and telling the students not to rush to court?
I liked it. Hey, he's trying to save his school some money.
Exactly.
He understands how expensive those fines get. So no, I thought that was a I thought that was very good of Dennis Gates to do that, and
Like we just got this roster.
It worked.
Okay, well, I hate to rub it in on you, Conrad, but I got to step.
No, you don't.
Know,
like, don't start whatever you're about to say after this. Don't say, "Oh, I hate to do this." No, do it. Just do it. If you're an Auburn fan, don't hesitate to say something to Alabama. I hate to do this. Nah, hell no. Tell him. Tell him.
Well, Damien, let me just say this: Conrad's good about it. Everything.
Okay, then so why you want to bring? Why are you trying to knock him down then? If you know he's good about it, why are you trying to bring it up? What's the point of bringing it up then? If you hate to do it to him, why are you gonna do it to him?
It's all right, Damien. No, Don. You can share your stat. I want to hear it. I want to hear it.
Yeah, y'all haven't let a game in 80 minutes.
That is a good stat.
And you hate to tell him that.
That's a good stat.
Well, that's for the other Alabama people out there listening, Damien. Okay, let me just say that.
Do you hate to tell them? Like, do you hate to tell the rest of Alabama fans they had? Okay, then so don't start it off by saying I hate to do this to you. Nah, rip the Band-Aid off and say it with your chest. Make up your mind. Are you an Auburn fan, or are you just if you like me, you fair weather? It depends on who's winning at the time.
Well, I think everybody out there knows I'm an Auburn fan.
No, they don't, because you said Florida was the best team in college basketball yesterday.
Well, who?
I ain't doing it. This man gonna sit there and tell you, he's gonna brag to you that y'all ain't won a game in 80 minutes. Y'all hadn't had a lead in 80 minutes and then say he hates to do it to you. Nah.
He's just trying to be nice about it. I appreciate you acknowledging that you're a fair weather fan, though.
When it comes to basketball, you know how I feel in football season.
I don't know. I thought I did, but I don't know.
No, I'm just an equal opportunity hater. Anybody can get the smoke. Any team can get the smoke. Any of them. Any single one of them. But no, I'm here for it though. I'm here for it. I like to poke the bear a little bit. Because I mean, if you're an Auburn fan, you got the number one team in the nation. Don't handle it with grace. No, let them know. Because then somebody no, it was when we were at Social Taco the other day. FJ said that Alabama's gonna go into Neville Arena the last game of the season, beat Auburn by 10. I said, what? I said, yeah, I believe it. I said, hey, that's what I'm talking about. And I'm here for it. Because again, we haven't seen Alabama and Auburn be this good in basketball. Let's lean into it. Why are we so passive now? All eyes are on us. All eyes are on us.
Mm-hmm.
So let's lean into it. Just let's make the rivalry great in basketball as well as it is in football. You know what you could have said? They hadn't won an Iron Bowl in 5 years. They hadn't let it out. It was 60 times 5? 300 minutes? Yeah, they hadn't won an Iron Bowl in 300 minutes.
Yeah, but I don't have to bring that up.
Exactly.
It's just the reality of the situation, and
you feel me?
It is what it is. Like, and basketball and football are different too. I mean, it's not saying that winning in one sport or the other doesn't matter. It's just no. I mean, let them. Hey, if I was an Auburn fan, I'd be having a great time right now. You haven't had anything to be happy about in your football program in quite some time, so this is your opportunity to beat your chest, and I would absolutely be doing the same thing if my football team was bad.
See? Here we go. Let's go to Bennett, who wants to talk some ball with us this morning. What's going on this morning, Bennett?
Hello again, guys.
What's up, brother?
So, I like it, Damien. I was kind of listening to it. I wasn't going to say anything about Don. I didn't feel there's anything wrong with him saying, hey, I'm sorry for saying this. And, man, you're just on him about that.
No, like, I hate the fact that you're trying to, like, it's almost saying no offense and then saying one of the most offensive things that you could possibly think of. It's no. Say it. Just say it with your chest.
Fair. I'm here for it. I'm here for it 100%. I want to beat my chest about Auburn and make fun of Alabama fans, because I think I'm as much as I am an Auburn fan, I'm also just like not an Alabama fan, like an Alabama hater.
Okay.
And it's just part of being a big Auburn fan. I actually had a friend last night, an Alabama fan, who was over at my house or something, and we turned on the Auburn game, and Arkansas scores first, and he goes, upset alert, and we're down 2-0. And then we turned on the Missouri game on the other TV, and then every other Auburn fan just started screaming upset alert because it was 12-0, and he did not like that. So I think we poked the bear a little too much on him, but it was funny. Anyways, is there a possibility that Alabama loses every single game the rest of the season? Like, I've been thinking about it, but
dang, Bennett.
I did say he's a hater.
Yeah,
so at least he acknowledged.
He acknowledged it. Like, man, he don't think Alabama's going to win another game the rest of the season. We appreciate you, big dog, but
I mean, it's possible. They got a tough stretch, but
they got to make some shots.
I feel like the odds are in their favor to win at least one of these games, but I guess it's possible.
Yeah. Somebody texted in and said, did Denver Jones break Sears in the Tide?
No.
I don't think so.
Last time I checked, he had 35 points last
Right.
night.
I say he didn't. He might have broke Chris Youngblood, but he didn't. Mark Sears is locked and loaded, ready to go.
Mm-hmm. No, and I mean, look, again, now if you lose to Kentucky, and depending on how that game looks, we might be having different conversations on Monday. But again, this is not at least in my opinion, we are not at the sky is falling type scenario, right? I mean, again, you lost to the number one team in the country. Granted, it was a game that you felt like you should have won because you had a horrible shooting night, but you lost to the number one team in the country, and then you went on the road and lost to a top 15 team in the country on a night where they scored over 100 points. Now, granted, again, that's a credit to how good Missouri was offensively at times last night and how bad Alabama was defensively at times last night. But you can also look at things in that game and, yeah, if you're losing 3-4 games in a row, we got a big problem here. But it's the SEC. It's difficult. We've talked about all year how difficult it is. And so now when you face some adversity and you lose back-to-back games to really, really good teams, I don't think this is the time to go all doom and gloom just yet. But we'll see how the rest of the season goes. You got five great opportunities if you're Alabama and Auburn to finish things the right way. So, and yeah, again, all of this is going to be forgotten if you're Alabama and you go to Neville Arena and you knock off Auburn at the end of the season. Now, do I think that's likely right now? No, but
it can happen.
It can absolutely happen. 100%.
Absolutely. 205-834-9450. We'll continue with your text message, your calls on the other side. Keep it locked right here on Morning JOX.
6:51 here on your Thursday morning. Morning Jocks. Conrad and Damien here with you for a few more moments before we hand you off to McElroy and Kublick in the morning. Getting your reaction to SEC hoops last night. Auburn winning a close one against Arkansas down at Neville Arena. Alabama suffering their second loss in a row, traveling to Como, losing 110-98 against the Missouri Tigers. And if you're not an Auburn fan, you've been in a pretty good mood this morning. If you're an Alabama fan, probably not in the best mood this morning, but we appreciate all of the interaction, and we just like hearing from y'all. How does this change how you feel about Auburn? Are you a little bit more worried maybe that they might drop a game here in the final stretch? The good news is, with Alabama losing again last night, feels like Auburn's essentially locked up the regular season title.
Right.
I mean, again, if they were to drop another game and then lose to Alabama at the end of the regular season, there could be a different situation. But at least for right now, you've got yourself a little bit of a cushion if you're Auburn, and if you're Alabama, you are just looking for some answers before Kentucky comes to town, because the Kentucky team that we saw last night, granted, Vanderbilt played pretty well against them, especially in the first half and the first couple minutes of the second half. But then about the 14, 15-minute mark, you saw why Kentucky is one of the more dangerous teams when they're on offensively. And, if you're Alabama, you definitely don't want to be looking at 3 straight losses in this final stretch, because you do still have 3 games left against the top 6 teams in the country. So
yeah, Antoine, he texted in on the Jocks text line 205-834-9450. Says nobody cares about what you do in the regular season. Seasons are judged on what you do in the tournament. And last year we went to the Final Four while Auburn got bounced in the first round. Roll Tide. There we go. That's the kind of mindset you got to have. Listen, you've already erased the Missouri loss from last night out your system. You're on to Kentucky. That's what I'm talking about. Let's go to the phone lines. This is Fix It on the phone lines with us. What's going on, Fix It?
Hey, David, Conrad, I just wanted y'all to know y'all are the only reason why I get up at 6 a.m. Real talk. This is the best damn hour of the day. Damon, I don't hate to say this. Bama fans suck. Auburn rules. I caught the shade, Conrad. We had a sucky season for football, but I look forward to the fact that we won't have one this year. Hopefully,
hey, there you
the
go.
same time we're doing this basketball,
Exactly.
we're doing football.
That's right.
Let's go. Hey, man, we appreciate you, dog. We appreciate that. See, that's all you got to do. He said he ain't got no shame in saying this. Like, yes, Alabama sucks. Auburn absolutely rules. Okay, there we go. He ain't got no shade. He's straight to it.
Mm-hmm.
That's how it's got to be. Or at least that's what makes the rivalry so healthy.
No, I respect it. Look, he acknowledged, hey, we sucked last year,
Yeah.
but we're not going to this year. Granted, I don't have the same optimism that you have, but it should be better.
They got Jackson Arnold.
It'll be better.
Let's go to
It'll
Dave.
be better.
Let's go to David Hoover before we get out of here. What's happening this morning, Dave?
Yeah, Alabama's got to figure out their identity. You guys touched on it, but Grant Nelson had 3 rebounds. Sears had 2. Okay? I'm 5'8". You give me 40 minutes of basketball, I'll find 3 rebounds. But why is he on the wing? Why is he on the wing at he's 7 foot?
Because he used to be able to shoot 3-pointers when he played in North Dakota, and now he can't anymore.
Yeah, well, he also, last year we saw put-back dunks and hadn't seen one this year.
Yep.
Because he's out on the wing. He has no business out there.
Get him right,
That's all
Dave.
you're going to get out of him. Pull somebody off the bench to replace him.
Hey, Dave is fed up. That's what I'm talking about. But hey, he has a great point though. Like, he's a 7-footer, big dog. Like,
It's nice having Cliff down there, but they could both be down there.
exactly. McElroy and Kublick in the